One of the busiest railway stations in China was packed with thousands of people. Families rushed to catch their trains. Businessmen hurried through the gates. The halls were crowded with tourists, and somewhere within that crowd, a man wanted by the authorities believed he had disappeared. He wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He was simply walking. To everyone around him, he looked like any ordinary passenger, but he had no idea that somewhere above him, a camera had already captured his face. Within moments, his identity was matched against a police database. Security officers received an alert. They moved through the station, and before the suspect could reach his train, he was arrested. No police chase, no eyewitnesses, no dramatic investigation, just a camera and artificial intelligence. Stories like this have raised one question around the world. How much can China actually see? Is it really possible for one country to monitor more than 1.4 billion people? Or has the internet turned China's surveillance system into something far more mysterious than reality? Today, we're separating fact from fiction, because the truth is even more impressive and far more complicated than most people realize. The arrest you just witnessed wasn't a coincidence. It was the result of one of the most advanced surveillance systems ever built. For decades, China has invested billions of dollars in one goal: not building the tallest skyscrapers in the world, not creating the fastest trains on Earth, but building a country where almost every public space can be monitored. Today, China has installed hundreds of millions of surveillance cameras across its cities. They're mounted on traffic lights, subway stations, airports, schools, shopping malls, highways, residential neighborhoods, and even the streets of small villages. In some major cities, it's almost impossible to walk for more than a few minutes without passing beneath a camera. But this is where most people misunderstand what these cameras actually do. Most people imagine someone sitting in a dark room, watching thousands of video feeds. That's Hollywood. Reality is very different. Most modern surveillance systems don't rely on humans. They rely on artificial intelligence. Computers don't get tired. They don't blink. They don't lose focus. Instead, every second, they automatically analyze enormous amounts of visual information. When someone walks in front of a camera, the system first detects the presence of a human face. Then, it begins measuring hundreds of unique facial features: the distance between the eyes, the shape of the jaw, the position of the ears, the curve of the eyebrows, the length of the nose, even tiny details that most people never notice. Within moments, those measurements become a digital identity. Not your name, not your passport, just numbers. A unique biometric profile. Then comes the next step. The computer asks one simple question: have I seen this face before? If that biometric profile already exists inside a database, the system may be able to identify the person within seconds. And if the authorities are searching for that individual, an alert can be sent almost instantly. Supporters of these systems argue that the technology helps locate dangerous suspects, identify missing people, and improve public safety in crowded places. Critics, however, warn that the very same technology can expand government surveillance and reduce personal privacy. And that's exactly why China's surveillance system has become one of the most controversial technologies in the world. But cameras alone don't explain everything. Because even if a camera recognizes your face, how does it know where you've been all day? How is one camera connected to another, across an entire city? And how can millions of people be tracked without thousands of officers following them? The answer isn't hidden inside the cameras. It's hidden inside something that almost everyone carries with them: their smartphone. Your smartphone doesn't just help you communicate, it's constantly generating data. Every time you unlock your screen, open a map, pay for a cup of coffee, order food, book a train ticket, or simply connect to the internet, a new piece of information is created by itself. One piece of information means almost nothing, but combine thousands of them. And they begin telling a story. Where you wake up, where you work, which subway station you use every morning, which restaurant you visit every weekend, how often you travel, who you spend your time with, even the route you take on your way home. This isn't unique to China. Smartphones generate data almost everywhere in the world. The difference is how that information can be connected to other systems. In China, digital life has become deeply integrated into everyday activities. Millions of people use mobile payment platforms instead of cash. QR codes are used for everything from ordering food to entering buildings. Online services, transportation, shopping, and banking are often connected through digital identities. Each system serves a practical purpose, but together, they also create an enormous digital ecosystem. A system that records millions of ordinary activities every single day. During the COVID-19 pandemic, China introduced health code applications. People received QR codes that determined whether they could enter shopping malls, board trains, visit offices, or travel between cities. The system was designed to help control the spread of the virus. For many people, that was the first time they realized just how dependent their daily lives had become on their smartphones. Even after the pandemic ended, digital services continued to play a central role across the country. But smartphones are only one source of information, because every day, millions of people also travel. They buy tickets, pass through subway gates, drive on highways, enter office buildings, walk into shopping malls, and many of those places are connected through digital systems as well. Imagine someone leaving their apartment in Beijing. A camera records them exiting the building. A few minutes later, another camera captures them entering a subway station. Their transit card is scanned. Later, they use their phone to buy lunch. Then they pay for a cup of coffee. That evening, another camera records them returning home. Individually, each event is completely ordinary. Together, they create a timeline, not because someone is manually following that person, but because different systems are capable of recording different parts of the same day. This is what experts call data integration. There isn't one giant camera watching everything, but many separate technologies generate information that can sometimes be analyzed together. Supporters argue that this helps solve crimes more quickly, locate missing people, and improve public safety. Critics argue that it also raises difficult questions about privacy, government oversight, and how much information should be collected about ordinary citizens. And this is where one of the biggest myths about China begins. You've probably heard people say, China gives every citizen a score. Lose points, and you can't travel. Say the wrong thing, and your life is over. But is that really how it works, or has one of the world's most misunderstood systems become even more confusing because of social media? The answer is far more complicated than most people think. China's social credit system has become one of the most misunderstood topics on the internet. For years, videos, articles, and social media posts have claimed that every person in China has a single score that controls their entire life. One mistake, and you lose points, lose enough points, and you can no longer travel. It sounds terrifying, but the reality is far more complicated. Over the years, China has experimented with different social credit programs. Many of them were designed for businesses, local governments, or financial trustworthiness, rather than giving every citizen one unified score. At the same time, Chinese authorities have used court enforcement systems that can restrict people who refuse to comply with legal judgments. For example, a person who repeatedly refuses to repay court-ordered debts may face restrictions on purchasing certain high-speed rail tickets or airline tickets until those obligations are fulfilled. Those measures are real, but they are very different from the idea that every citizen receives one nationwide score for every action they take. In other words, the internet often combines several different systems and presents them as one massive program. That doesn't mean there are no privacy concerns. There certainly are. But understanding the difference between reality and exaggeration is important, because once misinformation spreads, it becomes almost impossible to separate fact from fiction, and that's exactly why China's surveillance system remains so controversial. Not because everyone agrees on what it can do, but because no one agrees on where its true limits are. Now imagine combining surveillance cameras, facial recognition, digital payments, transportation records, and artificial intelligence. What happens next, instead of simply watching yesterday? AI begins trying to understand tomorrow. Modern artificial intelligence doesn't just recognize faces, it looks for patterns. If millions of people follow similar routines every day, the system can learn what is considered normal. And when something suddenly changes, it can detect unusual activity for human review. For example, if a vehicle enters a restricted area, or a person wanted by the police appears in a crowded location, the technology can help investigators respond much faster than before. Supporters argue that this saves lives, reduces crime, and allows emergency services to respond within minutes. Critics ask a different question. If artificial intelligence becomes powerful enough to recognize everyone, who guarantees that power won't be abused? That's a question governments around the world are now facing, because surveillance technology is no longer unique to China. Cities across Europe, North America, the Middle East, and many other regions are investing in facial recognition technology, smart traffic cameras, license plate readers, and AI-powered security systems. The difference isn't whether surveillance exists or not. The difference lies in how each country chooses to regulate it, how transparent those systems are, and what legal protections are available for the people being monitored. Technology itself is neither good nor evil. A camera doesn't decide whom to watch. An algorithm doesn't write the laws. People do. And perhaps that's the most important lesson of all. The future won't be decided by artificial intelligence alone. It will be determined by the rules that humans create for it. Because once technology becomes powerful enough to monitor millions of people, the real question is no longer, can it be built? It's, who should be allowed to control it? That question doesn't matter only to China. It matters to every country. Because the future of surveillance may already be here. But before we decide whether China's surveillance system is the future, there's one question we still haven't answered. Can it actually be fooled?